Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our Auvik and WatchGuard webinar, Using Network Visibility to Grow Your MSP Business. My name is Christine Ramsdell, Marketing Specialist here at WatchGuard. I'm also joined by three presenters. Julian Matosian, Senior Product Manager over here at WatchGuard, Ray Patel, Product Manager at Auvik, and I also have our guest speaker, Neil Holm, Founder and Owner of Impact Business Technology. But before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping items first. The first is that the audio streams through your computer only, so there is no dial-in. Second, all of your widgets on your menu are resizable and movable. Third, there is a Q&A box in the widget menu, which will be answered at the end, but at any time, please feel free to enter your questions into the box. The on-demand recording of this webinar will be available as the same live link. And lastly, we do provide CPE credit for all our webinars. In this case, this webinar is for an hour, so it will be 1 credit. So without further ado, I'm going to present the presenters, so to speak. I have here Julian, Ray, and Neil. So we'll start off with Julian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Julian Matosian. As Christine mentioned, I am a senior PM here at WatchGuard, and I'm responsible for WatchGuard's visibility solutions, as well as all of our network security solutions.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Neil Holm. I'm the owner of Impact Business Technology. We've been a managed services provider and managed security provider for about 18 years now.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Ray Patel, a product manager here at Auvik. I've been around in the telecom world for about 10 years and with Auvik for about 4. And my focus is largely around delivering some awesome network monitoring and management to MSPs.
So with those introductions done, let's move on to the next slide, where we're going to cover we're going to review what we're going to cover in this webinar here this morning. So we've got a few things lined up for you. We did our introductions, obviously. Next, we're going to talk about how you can leverage visibility to essentially generate more revenue by evolving your client sites. We're then going to discuss scaling cloud solutions to increase your margins, right? So you currently have your businesses and your solutions lined up in a number of different ways. We wanted to discuss and present how you can increase your margins and bring in more revenue that way. We wanted to discuss and review key features your network and cloud services should have, and then how you can differentiate yourselves as MSPs using the visibility tools that we'll be presenting here today. And then lastly, as is typical with most webinars, we'll end with some Q&A. So starting really quickly, we want to give a brief overview of WatchGuard for those who might not be familiar with who we are. WatchGuard has been around for a very long time, almost 23 years now. We were founded in Seattle, Washington. We were the first firewall company. Some guys were kind of like, why don't we just put a bunch of security services into a box instead of having a bunch of different boxes? And they went ahead and they built what was the first firebox many, many, many years ago. We are a global company. We have operations, i.e. big offices in 5 countries, but we have a direct presence in more than 21. We're at over 700 employees now, over 80,000 customers, and our channel has grown quite significantly over that period of time. Our portfolio has grown as well. I've been here almost 4 years in that time. When I started, we did just network security, and we had just a few wireless access points available that were provided a pretty basic offering. And now at this point, when you look at the WatchGuard portfolio, we have a very significant and built-out secure Wi-Fi offering. We have a full network security solution that we'll kind of discuss briefly today from the visibility perspective. And then we have a fully functional, fully competitive multi-factor authentication solution as well. On to you, Ray.
Thanks, Julian. So Auvik is network management for MSPs. So we help you automate the most time-intensive manual tasks that drag on your time and resources today. Now, for those of you who haven't heard of us before, I'll just give a brief overview of what we're all about. So the main features that our partners love us for include automated topology mapping, so that you can see exactly what a prospect or a client's network look like in minutes and watch as it changes in real time. We're also known for automatic network device inventory, which is especially key on sites with devices from multiple network vendors. Now, you can also access all that documentation in one central location. We also have a number of automated alerts and a full automated alert system, which is pre-configured to a lot of industry best practices, so that this way you know when and where changes or problems are occurring, so that you can troubleshoot quickly and efficiently. When it comes to config management, we actually facilitate the automated backup and restore of configurations. We allow you to do comparisons to see what's changed between one config snapshot and another, and allow you to actually get your clients back up and running quickly in the event of a disaster or something going wrong. And last but certainly not least, Traffic Insights, which is our new network traffic visibility feature, leverages NetFlow and other data sources to unpack traffic so that you can actually see how clients are using the network. And I'll hand it off to Neil at Impact.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I'm a little jealous that we don't have a mascot. But moving on, Impact VT is a managed service provider, a managed security provider, as I said in the intros. We're a service provider to the S&P market, particularly in the financial and professional services verticals. We service a client base from Maine to Mexico from our headquarters in Connecticut. Impact has been a WatchGuard partner for as long as I can remember. I know you said you came up with the Firebox. Well, we started using you at the Firebox 2, which was that big red brick that we had in our network stack. But now WatchGuard are our first choice for network security appliances and network security services. And we've been using Auvik for a couple of years now. We love the features. We love the progress that they're making. We love the reporting and integration. It works really well with the rest of the infrastructure and operations systems that we currently use. As an MSP, our primary focus is on problem mitigation before the customer starts calling. So we operate a 24/7 help desk, and I don't want to get those phone calls from the customers. There's a direct inverse correlation between the amount of effort we put into preventative maintenance and the number of support calls our help desk has to field every day. So the more I can do on the preventative measure, the better and more profitable our business becomes.
Great. So with that, we wanted to kind of kickstart our discussion today by talking about how can we empower MSPs to actually leverage visibility to generate revenue by evolving some of the infrastructure and processes that we see, or that they see rather, within their client sites. So one of the key things that we've found an MSP starting to leverage quite heavily using Auvik and other tools is network assessments. And we found that performing a network assessment is a great way to first gain the visibility that you need to truly understand what's on the network. Now, that could be whether you're dealing with a prospect or auditing a current client at a regular or ad hoc interval. And the fact of the matter is, humans can't see things that remain hidden. They need a means to actually find things that could be hidden behind things like drywall or floor tiles. And as part of that, you need a complete inventory of what's on that site so that you can make recommendations to actually improve it. So systems like Auvik, they automate the network discovery process so that you don't have to spend a lot of time and resources literally crawling through switch closets and then manually drawing topology maps. With an accurate network assessment, you'll actually know that there aren't any hidden devices. So I talked a little bit about drywall and floor tiles. We've had a ton of stories from some of our partners around finding switches that are tucked in the ceiling, as an example. One of them even found an entire hidden network on a manufacturing floor, which would have cost them significant amounts of time and dollars if they'd quoted work without knowing what those devices actually were. And then once you've actually gained visibility into all these devices on the network, you need to actually determine how they're performing. So systems like WatchGuard and Auvik, they both give you the performance stats that you need automatically with no additional configuration necessary. So as a result, there's no guesswork here. If a switch or a firewall is running with a CPU that's pegged at, say, 100% utilization, that could be attributable to degraded network performance and therefore a degraded user experience overall. So with these types of tools, you can pinpoint what's causing those issues that are leading to that degraded performance. And these can be things like heavy broadcast traffic, physical or logical network loops. Now, if there's one of those loops and someone makes a spanning tree change, well, that loop could then potentially become active and cause some significant issues. Now, most of the time, these issues are what we call ticking time bombs, which pose a real risk to the network and could cause downtime in the future.
Yeah, Ray, a great example of this is where voice and data networks are separated, either physically or through VLANs. We recently encountered a situation where the VoIP phones for a customer were no longer getting DHCP from the VoIP-based router, but were instead getting a DHCP address from the Windows server. We knew the networks must have been bridged somewhere, and we knew it wasn't in the data center because we control access to that, and that's easy for us to audit. The prospect of checking under hundreds of desks for a miswired connection or a customer-installed switch was very daunting and time-consuming. Instead, Auvik and its great mapping features showed us which switches were bridged and which ports were in use, and we could very quickly track that down to the desk and reconnect the bad wiring and restore VoIP functionality. In the MSP business, quick resolutions are key to profitability.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, Neil. And I guess these underperforming devices could also be causing a slow network overall, which is a pretty frequent complaint that MSPs hear from clients. So this type of slowness can occur at pretty much every hop along the way within a network. So it is, I guess, a function of both time and complexity to manually track down that issue. Now, even if your prospect's connections are fine, you need to determine if there might be bottlenecks down the road. So that comes down to things like capacity planning and everything else. Now, being able to actually get these insights into those vulnerabilities is critically important because it'll help you prevent issues from happening down the road, as well as identify opportunities for you to refresh hardware, which is a significant way to boost your revenue from both existing as well as prospective clients. Now, one other thing that we commonly see is exhaustion overall. And what I mean by that is in an environment with a lot of device churn, it's a good idea to know if there will be enough IP addresses that are actually available. Now, without enough usable IP addresses to hand out to endpoints like laptops, smartphones, and any other devices, users that are attempting to hop onto a network, say through Wi-Fi, wouldn't be able to do so. And existing users might find their sessions being dropped. So getting a little technical now, if we have an IPv4/24 subnet, which has about 220 usable IPs that are actually used up, well, you need to start reevaluating how big of a block you need to assign. That pool is about to become exhausted as a few more guests or a few more employees are added to the network. So you can actually leverage this opportunity as a chance to generate new revenue by actually growing that network. Because again, if users can't connect, they can't work. But you as an MSP are empowered to help make that happen for your clients. Now, there are two main components to performing an assessment of network security and compliance. So the first is you need to compare the prospect's environment against your own set of standards. And you need to then compare that prospect's environment against their standards. So tools like Auvik can help you find things like if default passwords are being used by network devices, or if devices are on a VLAN where they shouldn't be. Having visibility into these security risks can help you prove why the business needs an MSP like yourself to prove that value in hiring specialists to keep them protected. So as an example, we have a partner that works with mostly Fortune 500 companies. And they once said to their CIO, hey, let us do an audit for you. It turned out that that company was not using SNMP v2, and there weren't any printer web interfaces. So within the device inventory, you could also easily identify if your devices were affected by known bugs. So now and then, vendors will typically come out with or publish a vulnerability. Many network vendors will publish that on a weekly, monthly type of cadence and say something bad's going to happen if we found a vulnerability that lets the wrong people log in using default credentials. And you can actually search the inventory to find out if any of these clients are using that model or software version and put together a plan to actually upgrade that stuff to the right version of code. And I'm going to pass it off to Julian.
Thanks, Ray. I think on this thread, to piggyback off of what Ray was saying here, in terms of using visibility tools and to provide network assessments to find vulnerabilities and potential security holes, they also provide the ability for VARs and service providers to take it even a step further, perhaps, and monetize some of these tools by providing managed detection and response services. So where as the service provider landscape is changing or kind of slowly evolving from just providing value-added services to providing managed services, there's kind of a burgeoning area within managed services called detection and response. And that you could call it just a tier within MSP services where not only is there kind of alerting or continuous monitoring, there's also this notion of automated response built in. And this is only doable with really powerful tools like Auvik and other similar tools like that provide visibility and automation built in so that you can not only view what's happening, for example, if something is hitting your network or if something has made it through the network, but also being able to leverage automation and respond on the spot, right? And without visibility, without insights into those things, you can't do that. And so if you have the right tools at play, you can generate more revenue by offering managed detection and response or MDR type services and layering those on top for your customers. And so it's additional revenue for yourselves, opportunity for yourselves, and it's also additional protection for your customers, and it reduces their exposure. So let's talk a little bit about scale, right, and how scaling and moving to the cloud means bigger margins. And to do that, you need, when you're looking at solutions as an MSP, as a service provider, you need to consider a number of different things when you're looking at vendors. And these are kind of, there are four types of categories of features or functional areas of cloud solutions that you should be looking for. And they tend to get labeled in different ways, but at their core, they fall into these four sort of buckets. And one of them is called multi-tier, multi-tenant architecture. And without trying to stay more high level here, but it's basically the ability for you to create an account for yourselves and then beneath you at different tiers, create accounts for your customers and then, create accounts for their, let's say, regions or departments and things like that. And so you need to have the ability to scale both vertically, so have a vertical account structure, and then horizontally as you onboard more and more customers to grow your business. When you bring on, or let's say you were to bring on a cloud solution that does not provide a full multi-tier, multi-tenant architecture, what that does is it doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing business. It just makes it significantly harder for you to do so. It creates a lot more overhead in management and account management and license tracking and just general overall visibility across all licensing, inventory, and security. So life becomes much more difficult when you have a cloud solution that does not have a native built-in multi-tier, multi-tenant architecture. You want to have scalable performance. So again, one of the reasons why you want to move to the cloud is because of scalable performance. And the right term here is right sizing. So if you look at some visibility solutions, they might typically be delivered in some type of MSI package or other type of software deliverable that you can then deploy in a VM that you would then deploy in, let's say, a data center or a server or something local. And there's some flexibility there because you have all the power at that point to decide which server you'd like to deploy and which hypervisor you'd like to use and determine which hard drives you'd like to install the VM on and so on and so forth. But that leads you down a road of this very large exercise of determining what's the right server for the right customer and so on. And there's a lot of cost built into that. With the cloud, you don't have to worry about any of that. Right? The cloud is always the right size, regardless of the complexity of the customer's environment. So whether you are working with, a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 100 company, or you're working with a small chain of coffee shops, the cloud affords you the right size of tenant, right, of cloud account for that customer. And so all you have to do is essentially flip the switch. It will always be the appropriate size. The resources will never be wasted, and they'll also always have the right level of performance for things like reporting. You want to have consolidated inventory and licensing management. So we know that service providers tend to have a lot of customers, right? So the sweet spot that we find is usually 50 customers to 250 tends to be the common range we run into, but we definitely see more and more service providers going beyond that 200 to 250 range. And you can imagine that tracking licensing and inventory and expirations and start and stop dates and across all of that becomes difficult and a bit unwieldy. And the more you can consolidate across not just networks monitoring services and security services, but also the whole business side, if you can bring that in to a visibility tool and consolidate that into a cloud solution as well, there's a lot of value there for a partner in terms of optimizing workflows. And then lastly, right, you want to look for cloud solutions that have automated alerts and notifications as well, right? So it's not just important to be able to log in and view a dashboard and see what's on the dashboard. There's a bunch of times when you're not in that dashboard, or you might have staff that's not looking at that dashboard. They might be offsite doing something. They might be at home. We don't really know what happens on the day-to-day. You might not either. So you want to have that ability to be notified instantly or get alerts and have that trail of notifications and alerts for when things happen so you can respond as quickly as possible. And so these are 4 features that are, in our view, kind of par for the course or core to what a true cloud solution should offer to when you're thinking about scale and performance. So when you're looking at cloud also, there's this concept of no infrastructure costs. So coming back to that example of deploying this in a data center, there's cost, right? You have to figure out, again, and you have to build these into your packaging, right, for your customers, your calculation of margin. You have to figure out what is it going to cost you for the monthly operating costs for the data center and for the staff to run that and for the hardware costs and the life cycle for the hardware. So is it going to be 5-year or 7-year and so on? With the cloud, there's zero infrastructure cost. All of that is on the vendor. And there's a lot of value in that because what that means is that you can then, as an MSP who's hoping to grow the business, you can then allocate those financial resources to marketing, for example, or to additional sales or to additional technical staff that can provide value to the customer rather than on just overhead. The flexible licensing and inventory management, again, this is really important because you want to be able to track this all in one view. Bouncing between different portals is a big chore, especially as you have different vendors. So to be able to consolidate, or different products, so as you manage different products from, let's say, one or more vendors, you want to be able to consolidate everything into one view and be able to report on that for your customers. So like that they can have one report to ingest and have one clear picture on their standing. And this should be flexible whether you do business with your customer and you package your solutions, let's say, on a monthly recurring revenue basis or a monthly recurring billing basis with them, or if you have more of a kind of annual billing model with them where they just, they'll pay an annual fee with you and so on. Automated security with detection and response. So this is a big one. When you have visibility, as we mentioned, as part of the managed detection and response piece, but with a little more elaboration here, Visibility is a big piece. Clearly, you want to be able to see what's happening in your environment. I think Ray mentioned you don't know essentially what you don't know. I think the other piece of that, right, that would be the first third of actually identifying what you don't know and learning about it. But then the other piece would be to actually have an ability to respond. And so when you find visibility tools and when you're looking for visibility tools, the ones that we think offer the most value are the ones that have response capabilities built in, right? So having the ability to see something, but then having to send somebody on site, that is technically a response, you're losing bandwidth because somebody has to go on site and perhaps reimage a machine or manually triage an endpoint or manually reboot firewall or something like that. If you have that automation built into the visibility tool and they can just click a few buttons or rely on or set some policy even, and the visibility tool can take actions on your behalf that you just then need to audit later, it creates a lot of efficiencies for you that you can then use to scale elsewhere. I think this slide's yours, Ray.
Yes, thanks, Julian. So when it comes to winning new clients, one of the most satisfying feelings for any business owner is the fact that you've actually brought them on board as a new partner, and you're going to help deliver some real value to them in managing and monitoring that network. But scaling your business can present some significant operational challenges as your success grows. So, for example, we see a lot of MSPs struggle with how to actually increase or even maintain some of their margins during growth. So it's really hard to provide that same standard of customer service and experience to a larger client base without adding more technical expertise and expensive technical expertise, for that matter, to your payroll. So there's a few different ways that you can help augment the talent that you have today and leverage products and services that can provide the incremental piece to continue to provide that great experience to your partners. So in addition to automated network assessments, those types of tasks can actually include backing up configs. So if a disaster takes your network down, you don't actually have to cross your fingers that network gear was backed up recently. Instead, you can just restore those devices at a click of a button once you put in a replacement chassis, as an example. But if there is something going on with the network, you don't want to have to always send a tech on site to troubleshoot, right? You'll want to have remote visibility and the ability to access those devices and their configurations so that you can quickly identify the cause of the problem. And as a matter of fact, you can even onboard new clients in a fraction of the time that it would normally take today. So one of our partners has actually mentioned to us that leveraging Auvik to automate their onboarding process cut that onboarding time overall by about 75%. And the one other thing I'll mention on this front as well is when you're selecting a management system, we encourage our MSPs to make the most of those investments. So what does that mean? We recommend that MSPs are choosing solutions that actually consolidate some functions. So the cost associated with monitoring one device versus multiple. So as an example, a lot of firewall hardware can actually also function as a wireless controller. So you may not need that Wi-Fi controller functionality today, but should that use case present itself in the future, usually with a quick flip of a switch in software, you can actually make that functionality enabled and present that additional network role for your devices. So software with subscriptions is far more scalable as well. And there's typically volume discounts that apply as you grow and your deployments grow, which helps increase your margins when you acquire new clients. So the next set of slides that we wanted to go into talk a little bit about how we are actually going to be leveraging this additional visibility to differentiate your MSPs from your peers that might be within your market. So your network visibility and control over all these devices that you're managing for your clients will be a huge differentiator between you and your competition when you're trying to win net new business. So a lot of MSP pitches look the same. With the same services as well as the same tools. So a way to set yourself apart from the pack without having to drop your price, which is a race to the bottom, is a fewfold. So I want to present a couple partner stories here. The first is our partner Corey Kirkendall from 5K Tech, who uses Auvik in his initial client meetings to differentiate himself. So he sits down with prospective clients, and while he's meeting with them, he shows them the topology map that's visible within Auvik. And he says that that level of visibility puts him in an entirely different light. So he's able to drill down and show them how many devices are connected, how they were connected to each other, and that's typically blown his clients or his prospects away. So he found that they immediately trusted his ability to actually manage their IT infrastructure, and that led to a successful close of a deal. Another partner who is a smaller shop, it's about 3 people overall, they've been using Auvik to close 100% of their prospects when they use Auvik as a selling tool. And they've told us that presenting a real-time view of that network presents that small MSP as a trusted advisor where no one else within the space can. So with Auvik in their back pocket, they've said that they don't have to compete on price. It kind of sells itself. Now, after you've conducted a successful network assessment on a prospect's environment, you can make some recommendations to refresh degraded services or evolve the network with evidence that answers the question of why. So you can visually show prospects where issues exist and how they could affect the business's operations. So this creates a different kind of conversation with the decision maker. You can say, well, here's why I'm suggesting this. And if we make those changes, here's how your businesses will benefit.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. Most of the customers that we deal with don't have an in-house IT professional, someone we can talk to and present the technical evidence for proposed change. So for us, the graphical representation of the Auvik map, the charts, and the ability to quickly present this information live while talking to the CFO is very helpful while making the case for upgrades.
And with this type of automation, you'll also show the prospect that you have the tools to effectively take care of their network. So with this visibility, you'll know about problems before they occur and allow you to be proactive and prevent any disruption to your clients' productivity. So this is a huge advantage over the competition. And we typically find both ourselves and our partners position this tool set kind of like this to their clients. So instead of you, the client, having to call me, the MSP, when your network is acting up, I'll be able to call you and tell me that we're already on it because we have the capabilities to spot things when they change.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, if I can resolve the problem before the client calls us, then we've done our job. Hopefully, you get to the point where your customers are calling you so infrequently, you have to remind them why they hired you in the first place.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Neil. And so you need to know what's on the network to actually quote work accurately as well. So when you know what's on that network and you know down to the model level, the software version that's involved, even the way that it's configured today, you don't have to necessarily eat the cost of the unknown or go back to that client subsequently for more money. Instead, you can be confident that you found everything and you provided the most accurate quote that you possibly can with a detailed set of information at your fingertips. So this allows us to actually set expectations on both sides here, both from the MSP's perspective and their prospect's perspective. As an MSP, you don't want to overquote or underquote. No one likes a contractor who changes their original quote. So ultimately, that's a win for both your bottom line and that for your prospects. I'm going to hand it back to Neil.
Hey, Neil, I think you might be on mute. Perfect.
You're right. I am. Sorry about that. Just doing my job. So one of the best things we love about WatchGuard and Auvik together is the ability for Auvik to pull the configuration file from the WatchGuard products and give us point-in-time changes and the ability to either roll back those changes, review the changes, compare them side by side. I think I can share my screen here, and I'll show you what we're talking about. Guys, it kicked me off the presentation there for a moment. Perhaps we can skip over this, and I'll come back and do the demo in a moment.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, we'll move it to Julian. So, Julian, you can go ahead and start on the next.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm not muted. Good. All right, so the integration between Auvik and WatchGuard is pretty straightforward. We have documentation on WatchGuard.com on how to do that. It's available through our tech help, and it requires two things. It requires WatchGuard Firebox running fireware 12.3 or higher. So definitely should be running one of our more recent fireware releases. And some software from Auvik, so Auvik Cloud and the Auvik Collector. And basically, the way you set it up is you would set up your Firebox. You would set up Auvik Cloud connecting, or you'd have the Firebox talking to Auvik Cloud through one of the external interfaces. And then you would have the collector running within the network on one of the trusted or optional interfaces that you configure. And basically then everything that the WatchGuard Firebox is doing, Auvik would read as the network RMM tool. So that would include devices connecting to the WatchGuard, access information, subscription status of the Firebox, renewal dates, hardware. Auvik collects a lot of different things. Neil can chime in, with his personal experience of what the integration does. But there's, even if Neil, if you're unable to get the demo running, some of your own context here would be great to add some color to the slide. But there's a lot of different things, and we have documentation available where we run you through step-by-step how to set up the configuration. It requires just some basic SNMP settings to be completed in the fireware web UI. So basically the software running on the Firebox, you can just go in and enter some basic parameters to get the Auvik and the Firebox talking to each other. It creates one Firebox rule that sits at the top of the Firebox list so that it isn't impeded by other policies. And then you're more or less good to go. The setup of Auvik is also documented in our documentation. And one of the nice things about the documentation as well is that we provide you a lot of photos. So even if you're one of the people who likes to look at pictures and not read, or if you're one of the people who likes to read and not look at pictures, we have you accommodated in both directions so that you can get the integration going. But basically, at the end of the integration, what ends up happening is you would see the Auvik integration set up in the Firebox through the SNMP, through the firewall rule, So you'd see the firewall rule there, which would be set up specifically for Auvik, and then you would see the Firebox set up as an SNMP credential titled WatchGuard SNMP very creatively in the Auvik portal as one of the devices. And then they would start talking to each other, and Auvik would just begin monitoring the traffic coming through. And it would show you a bunch of information like the topology, like I think Ray mentioned earlier on in this presentation, in this webinar. We would show you the status, current uptime of the device, status of the interfaces, any alerts, utilization of the interfaces, so which interfaces have top utilization, bandwidth consumption per interface, packet information. We can show you a whole variety of different pieces of information. Auvik can show you that information that the Firebox is piping through up to their platform. And it's very straightforward. It's a very straightforward integration. And let me get back here to the presentation. So this is a slide that Neil put together. Neil, are you there?
Yes, Neil is back. I'm sorry about that. Luckily, my firewall was blocking the download of the screen share component. So we all understand how critical IT systems are to our customer success, and we're all well aware of how fast the landscape is changing for IT service providers like us. We need to respond to customer demands, and I just lost it again. We need to respond to customer demands for new applications and services, either on-premise or on cloud-based, all while maintaining and improving network connectivity for both wireless and wired devices. We need to react quickly when we're alerted to problems, either from the customer or more often from our remote monitoring systems, so that we can quickly restore the IT platform to a stable operation. And we need to watch for and respond to a changing security environment, whether that comes from a scheduled audit, an activity alert, or a new exploit that we need to patch. For all of this, we need information that's easily accessible, information that's up to date, and information that's integrated with the rest of our operational stack, including documentation platforms, ticketing systems, and more. That's where WatchGuard and Auvik do their best for impact and for our customers.
Okay, excellent. I think Neil will agree with me here. The demo is not cooperating with our webinar platform here, so we'll just move forward to Q&A section. Christine, do you want to lead that, or do you want me to just let people know how to enter questions if they have any?
I can definitely take over. So thank you, Julian, and thank you to the two presenters as well. So we're answering questions right now. So any questions you have, please enter them into the Q&A box that you see on your widget menu. The first question I have here is for Julian. Is Auvik already integrated with WatchGuard Dimension, or is there a plan to do so?
Auvik is not integrated with Dimension right now. There's, at the moment, no plan to do so. The integration with Auvik is with the Firebox. We are working on WatchGuard Cloud, which is our visibility tool, and we're working on a global API layer. So most likely what you'll see in the future will be integrations with tools like Auvik through the cloud, through WatchGuard Cloud, when our APIs are more mature and released.
Perfect. Thank you, Julian, for that. And another question here is that, so about the integration guide, the Auvik integration guide, it seems that an agent must be installed on a system that communicates with the Firebox, then reports all data to the Auvik cloud. Is that correct?
I'll defer to Ray on that one.
I'm sorry, Christine, could you repeat that question?
Yes, the question is that in the Auvik and WatchGuard integration guide, it seems that an agent must be installed on a system that communicates with the Firebox, then reports all the data to Auvik Cloud. Is this correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So we refer to our agents as collectors. So MSPs can download a collector and install it on a virtual environment, on a physical appliance. So we support both Windows and Linux operating systems for that. And then once that collector's been deployed within the Auvik portal, you'll actually instruct the collector to go out and scan any additional networks that it's found after its initial scan. So that initial scan will go out and find all the devices that have IPs on the subnet that the collector has been deployed onto. And then from there, it's going to start prompting a network administrator to enter credentials both for SNMP, the CLI, so using protocols like Telnet and SSH, to go in and actually start to fetch all these different insights that we'd gleaned from the device. So device details, config backups, and so on.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. And it looks like Neil might be ready for the demo. Neil, are you ready, or should we just get to more questions?
No, I think I can give a demo now. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. Let's see if we can see your screen.
All right, so that should be...
I see your screen. Perfect.
Awesome. So this is... I'm going to do the demo on myself. This is the best example we've got. What we're looking at here is the main dashboard for Auvik, and the device on the map that I have selected is our firewall cluster. So in our data center, we operate our own network for our own operations, our corporate office, and we also operate a data center where we co-locate systems for our customers. So within here, and we also have a remote data center down in Tampa, where there is another firewall cluster and another co-location facility. So all of this gets mapped by the Auvik collector. And that Auvik collector is buried somewhere here in the map. I can't actually see it. Here we go. There's my Auvik collector. It's a Linux virtual appliance running on Hyper-V. And frequently, it scans the network. It scans all of the subnets that we've given it access to and populates this map, which changes dynamically in real time. But let's focus on the WatchGuard firewall. You can see all of the subnets that my firewall has. As I started to talk about, one of the best things we love about it is the configuration aspect of it, tracking the configurations. And it looks at that in the documentation tab here. So every time we make a change to the firewall configuration, the XML file that the firewall runs from, Auvik picks up on that change and keeps a history of what that configuration file looked like at that time. It gets this configuration via the command line interface. It uses SSH over the custom port 4125 to log into the firewall, download that configuration database, as well as using SNMP to get performance stats and throughput and packets and all the rest of the stuff. So we can see here that the currently running configuration was from May 22nd, 2019. Actually, what we would see in a few minutes is the configuration change I just made to allow the screen share from On24 to work, but we'll get there in a moment. But I can look at any one of these configuration files, or even better, I can compare two configuration files. So if I compare the configuration from May 16th to the configuration on from today, we can scroll through here. Actually, I scrolled right past the change, and all the changes are highlighted for me in green. So it's very easy for us to see what changed in the firewall configuration at any particular point in time. So if you notice, for example, there is an event that happened, some traffic started getting blocked at a certain point in time, you can come back, you can correlate that with the change in the firewall and very quickly see what happened and why. If you tie this in with your WatchGuard system management server, you can even tell who made the change and what change control notes they put into the WatchGuard server at that moment in time to track down why this change was made. One of the other new features of Auvik and WatchGuard is the NetFlow, the ability to look at. Well, that's not very friendly, is it? Let me choose another vendor here. It's thinking. Give it a second. So we can look at traffic insights. And see what kind of traffic is flowing through that firewall, how it's affecting your network performance, and you can dive into any one of these particular types of traffic and see what it is, where it comes from, and get very granular in the level of detail and the throughput over time. It really helps with the troubleshooting, with the long-term analytics, to see how your network is performing over time, how your network is performing over a particular time period, over a week. So you can tell that between 12 and 2 every day over the span of a week, traffic to Facebook increased. Well, guess what? That means that during lunchtime, all your employees jumping on Facebook, doing the chat, posting pictures. It allows you to shape your network policy. It allows you to shape your HR policy even better. And this is what I'm talking about when we present the information to non-technical resources at the customer. You talk to the HR manager, you talk to the CFO about why they need more bandwidth. Very quickly, they may turn around and say, well, we don't need more bandwidth. We just need to stop them from using Netflix after hours or during their lunch. It really gives you that level of granularity to dig down and see what's happening. So, you know, all of the favorite maps, all of the favorite charts are in there. You've really got the best of both worlds to give your technical people and your non-technical people the information and the tools they need to make the right decisions. I think at that point, we should switch back to some Q&A.
Thank you, Neil, for that. That was very informative. Thank you. So let's switch back to questions here if anybody has any. Another question I have here is, does the Auvik collector need to be a specific server, or can it be an end user's machine?
So I'll take that one.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. So the Auvik collector can be deployed on, like we were saying before, both Windows or a Linux-based operating system like Ubuntu. We typically see partners deploying that onto a dedicated instance. And by instance, I mean that would typically be something like a virtual machine, or it could be optionally installed on top of a Windows server that might be doing other duties like hosting Exchange or hosting Active Directory. We do have some MSPs that in some smaller deployments have installed it onto a always-on workstation that might be running Windows as an example. And that works just fine, so long as the MSP has taken the appropriate measures to make sure things like updates don't happen automatically, the endpoint or the workstation doesn't go to sleep automatically. So as long as we've taken precautions to make sure that that device is always on, it would do the job of collecting data without a hitch.
Thank you, Ray. And another question I have here looks like it's for you as well. So what needs to be on the device being managed in order to pull the device configuration?
Great question. So in general, and then we can focus specifically on the WatchGuard integration, we look for a wide variety of data sources that most network devices will employ for the purposes of management and monitoring. So I'd say the two bread and butter types of protocols that we see most commonly are the Simple Network Management Protocol, or SNMP, as well as actually scraping data from a device's command line interface. Now, a CLI can be accessed over typically one of two transport mechanisms: Telnet, which is insecure, and we would not advocate for using that if SSH is available. And SSH would be the second mechanism by which you can access that CLI. So you typically need those two protocols enabled and their credentials put into Auvik for Auvik to be able to discover and monitor an appliance. And it would be those two protocols that we would need input to fully manage and monitor a WatchGuard device as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. And I have another question for you here, too. So how does Auvik access a WatchGuard appliance without credentials? Can you go into more detail?
Sure. So I think without credentials, there's a very limited amount of information that we can glean from that device, because without those creds, that device is doing a good job of protecting external agents like Auvik from actually being able to glean too much information about it. So without creds, we might be able to look at the MAC address that we're getting back from a WatchGuard device, and through looking up something called the OUI, that's the first few octets of a MAC address, we can glean that, hey, that MAC address belongs to the vendor WatchGuard, and therefore we think this is a WatchGuard device. We might also be able to, through the remote browser capabilities, so actually accessing a device's web GUI through the collector, be able to glean that, hey, we've ascertained that this is a WatchGuard appliance. So as a user's kind of onboarding their network, what we'll typically do as we empower and work with those partners to help onboard their clients is do those types of techniques to identify which devices might still not be fully onboarded and do need credentials put in.
Great, thank you, Ray. And another question, also, it looks like Neil might actually have a demo of this. Neil, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. If I just turn my mute off again. Let me get the screen share turned back on here.
Sure.
So what we typically see with no credentials, just with SNMP, is the stuff you see on the main dashboard here. So we know about its IP addresses, we know about its throughput, the CPU utilization, memory utilization, and device packets. And through this, you can get a lot of detail about how your system is performing and what it's doing. With credentials, though, that's where we get into the configurations. It's where we get into the ability to more deeply manage this system. So by all means, you get a lot of info just with SNMP, but the true power comes when you give it the credentials and let it have at it. You can give it read-only credentials. That's typically what we do. I don't like a third-party system to have read-write access to my platforms. But with read-only, it's still going to be able to get those configuration files. It's going to be able to look at all of the tunnels that it has. And the third part to this is if you configure NetFlow on your WatchGuard firewall and point the NetFlow to the Auvik appliance, now you'll be able to get all those traffic insights as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil and Ray. So kind of piggybacking onto your demo, so what if SNMP is not enabled on the internal network?
So I'll take that one initially. I think it'd go back to the previous question, which was, without credentials being provided to the device, what type of information is available? So again, I think at this point, we'd be able to decipher some key information like this is a gateway level device that has an IP address that would potentially be a gateway from one subnet into another. We'd be able to decipher that this is a device that belongs to the vendor of WatchGuard. And we, in these types of scenarios, we'd help prompt users to actually take the next steps of getting onboarded by putting in SNMP and login credentials.
Perfect. Thank you, Ray. All right. So it looks like we're about at time here, but before we leave, I do want to share the last slide with you. If Ray would like to present this part.
Sure. So, we hope that you guys have liked what you've seen here today. For any of you that are not currently Auvik partners or doing a trial of it, we'd love for anyone new to try it out for yourselves. So feel free to reach out to us. And right now we've got a little promo running. If you hit that URL and fill out the form to book a demo, we'll send over a free $5 Starbucks gift card. So your next latte or two would be on us.
Perfect. This sounds like a great deal, everyone. So Definitely visit the link. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. And special thank you to the presenters and our guest presenter, Neil. Thank you so much for joining. And just please note, you can definitely watch this recording again via the same link. You can also find it on our webinars page on WatchGuard.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.